2018 is at its end, and now we're moving on to 2019. So this week I wanted to make a video that's a little bit different and talk about the 3 habits that changed my life this year that I think could be useful for you too. I'm a little bit overzealous when it comes to lifestyle design. I routinely try out and test out things with regard to my own life to improve it. And that means making sure that everything that I do in my daily life is actively leading me towards or helping me accomplish the things that I want to accomplish, whether those goals are personal or professional. 2018 was a huge year for me to that end, and there were really 3 key habits that I picked up over the course of the year which made a significant impact on, well, me. The first one was meditation. A little over 3 months ago I started meditating, so this was pretty late into the year, but I started meditating daily, usually first thing in the mornings if I could, and now at this point it's truly just a habit. It's something that's automatic. It's something that I actually look forward to doing, that I want to make sure I get done, because one, it keeps my brain clear, and at this point with over 100 days of successful meditations in a row, I really don't want to miss a day, and since it's only 15 minutes a day, it's not really a huge time commitment, so I'm able to keep it going pretty regularly. Meditation, I think, is an extremely valuable habit because of the effect that it's had on my mental state. It's made me a lot calmer, not necessarily just in my emotions, but also in the way that I approach my work and my decisions. I often feel overwhelmed with the plans that I've laid out for myself, or the projects that I have ahead of me, or even just the work in any given day. And meditation has proven to be an extremely good way for me to deal with that stress and pressure, for me to relieve it, and for me to just feel like I've got a better handle on the reins of my life every day. In addition, my physical health has been up and down this year. I have a really tough time prioritizing personal health when I have other commitments, especially work commitments, that I want to do and get to. And so having one wellness habit, one health habit that's short and easy to accomplish comparatively is really useful, because it allows me to keep some level of consistency and build up confidence and routine really with doing something that's for my health benefit. And while exercise is great for that too, and I really enjoy being physically active, I find it harder to justify going to spend an hour or an hour and a half, getting dressed, showering, working out, that whole thing, versus the 15 minutes it takes me to meditate, where I don't even have to change my clothes. I know that's not necessarily a good reason to prioritize meditation, but I see it as a building block. Not only has meditation allowed me to enjoy benefits this year, but it's also setting up a foundation for future positive habits going into next year. I've been using the app Headspace. If you're curious about it, I recommend you give it a try. Give yourself a 30-day challenge or a 10-day challenge and just see whether you like it. I think we often have these preconceived notions of what meditation is like, when in actuality it can be very different from what you expect. Next is habit number 2. Habit number 2 has been tracking my money. I've always been a little bit obsessed with personal finance. It's kind of an extension of my other habits and just my interest in personal development. This year I kind of took it to a whole other level with money tracking. What I mean by money tracking is that this year I started actively keeping track of every dollar that I spent and earned. And I broke it down by category, so I knew what I spent it on. And at the end of every month, I'd go through my statements and I'd enter all my expenses manually in that way. With my income, I also did the same thing, breaking it up between the different ways that I earned money, whether it was through consulting or through translation or through creative projects. And I did all of this manually, and I set up an entire Excel that tracked every dollar that I spent or earned in this way. And I know that there are apps that do this, but doing it manually meant that I had to confront everything that I did personally, myself. It didn't just add up on its own. Instead, I spent a little bit of time, it really didn't take that long at all, at the end of every month, entering all this information into my Excel, and I could build out over time the average amount that I spend every month, which allows me to now know my set income goals. It allows me to know the places where I have to try to spend less money, the places where I'm doing a good job cutting costs, all of that really. I think that the way that we handle our money is something that we think we have a pretty good handle on, but in actuality, there are so many small expenses that add up very quickly that we don't think to consider, that we just lose sight of. Once I now can see it, I can see the money I'm spending going out eating and drinking at restaurants or to bars with friends, or I can see the money I spend shopping and buying things or on entertainment and going to movie theaters or enjoying or buying video games or other things like that. There's no room for me to lie to myself, and even, not maliciously, there's no room for me to be unaware of the way that my spending adds up. But the money tracking habit is not just about tracking money in and out. I also track my savings, my investment, and my progress towards financial independence. If you've achieved financial independence, then the money you earn from what you've invested is enough to cover your annual expenses, which means you don't really need to work because now you're essentially living off of passive income that's just made from money you've invested elsewhere. I don't see myself ever not working, but this is definitely a financial goal of mine because it'll make it easier for me to pursue a creative career, to make riskier decisions. And really what I've discovered is in the years that have gone by, in the years since I've started working, which hasn't been that long compared to a lot of people, but already every decision that I make to pursue the things that I'm most interested in has currently led me to make less money. It's led me further away from high income careers. Being creative is not a high income career for most people. There's a very small segment of people who can make a living off of their creative work. And while I definitely like to be part of that number, I want to pursue this artistic work. I want to pursue my writing and my other creative projects regardless of how much money I'm making. So if I can get to a point where I've saved enough that I'm essentially paying myself a salary off of the money that I've invested, I can afford to be a lot riskier and more direct in the way that I approach building my creative career and working on creative projects. Currently, I'm very far away from that goal. I think I'm about 1% of my way there. Because I'm not making a ton of money right now, and because I don't have as tight of a rein on my spending as I probably should, I'm not saving a ton of money. I'm not able to accumulate a lot over time. Regardless, it takes years to do this, to build up to this. But now, when I'm saving money, when I'm realizing how much I'm spending, it's not only contextualized in that short term, what's happening month to month or even year to year, I can see how the money I'm spending is affecting me over the years to come and affecting my eventual ability to get to this point of financial independence, of quote-unquote retiring early. If you are at all concerned about your money, if you want to get to a point of financial independence, I highly recommend that you start tracking your money. You can do it really simply in an Excel sheet. There's plenty of great resources online. One website that I think is useful, at least to get you started, is a website called Mr. Money Mustache. So Mr. Money and then Mustache. Just search for that on Google. It's a blog, and he's got a lot on there about the whole financial independence, retire early, or FIRE, as a lot of people call it, on there that you can check out. So that's the second habit. I know that's a big one. The third one kind of goes hand in hand, and it's time tracking. So two big tracking habits that I've started at the beginning of this year. I actually started them in February. With my time tracking, I track every hour that I work. I don't have a regular day job. Instead, I work entirely full-time on contract work and creative projects like my translation, consulting, or the writing projects that I've got going on. Those are the things that occupy most of my time. But with the time tracking, I was able to break down the time I spent by category. I could see how much time I spent on each of my different projects. And this way I could adjust if I felt like I wasn't spending enough time on writing, which is something I definitely didn't spend enough time on this year. And I could see how much time I was spending on translating and understand whether it was too time consuming or whether I could afford to spend more time on it for the rates that I was earning. With my time tracking, I was able to also chart now at the end of the year, looking back, which months were most and least productive for me, and I took notes on if there were extenuating circumstances, like my appendectomy at the beginning of the year, or when I had family visiting for 2 weeks and spent a lot of time with them. I could see the dips in productivity, I can see the dips in time worked, and I find myself feeling a lot less stressed knowing the time I'm actually spending on work. While I can spend 10, 12 hours seated at my computer working, there's only really a fraction of that, a portion of that, that is productive time spent. Instead, now doing the time tracking, what I've found is that instead of getting work done in small bits and pieces, like 10 to 15 minute increments, even though that still happens, I'm more predisposed towards just diving into work and then looking up and seeing that I've gotten an hour or 2 hours of deeper work done, where I'm able to get more creative, more challenging projects accomplished in that time. And at the end of the day, before, I would have not known how much I actually got done. I would have felt exhausted because I'd known I'd spent 12 hours at the computer, and I'd either be frustrated with what I got done or I'd be satisfied with what I got done, but I'd feel like it was the product of 12 hours. Now I know that the work I get done in any given day is typically the product of a lot less than that. Creative work is really tasking, and it's hard to write for 12 hours in a row. And I'm not tracking just hours spent thinking about stories or thinking about projects. I'm only tracking active hours worked. And so as a result, I have a lot more confidence around the amount of work I can accomplish, and I know when my load is getting too heavy to bear and I can't take on more work, or when I can take on more. Now, with the information I have from this year, I think going into next year, I'm going to be much better off in terms of staying at a steady work pace and not overwhelming myself, and knowing that I can invest time in certain areas to create better projects in those places. So I can create better YouTube videos, so I can create better products and projects for the website that I run, or so I can write more and start releasing more stories. As I've been sharing this with you, I'm realizing that there's really a recurring theme across these 3 habits, which is the theme of having better control, a better handle on the reins of your own life. The meditation has helped me with the emotional and the mental side, and the time tracking and money tracking has helped me with the practical, tangible side, both monetarily and the hours that I work. Even if I don't usually characterize myself that way, I am a pretty ambitious and goal-oriented person, and so having this ability to better understand myself through the actual numbers on my computer that I can just see, that I can study, that I can learn from, makes me feel a lot better and a lot more in control of my own life. So these are the habits that really sincerely changed my life over this past year that I'm really looking forward to keeping up in the new year. They don't take a lot of administrative time to keep up. If you're at all curious, I highly recommend you give each of them a try for at least 30 days. I think if you do, you'll start to experience a lot of the benefits that I got for yourself, and probably even notice other ones that I failed to explain or that are unique to your own situation. Thanks for watching my video. If you're new to my channel, every Friday I make a video about some sort of imaginary or creative topic. In this case, this one was a little bit different, but if you like these, let me know, and maybe I'll make more detailed videos in the future that are better organized and can actually give you tangible strategies towards these and show off some of the systems that I have in place for myself. Yeah, that's all I've got to say this time. Happy New Year, and I'll see you next week.